Hi, I'll be doing a little speech for you guys today. So, are you aware that celebrating Christopher Columbus Day glorifies years of colonization and harm, while celebrating Indigenous Peoples Day celebrates their resilience and beautiful culture? Many of us celebrate October 13th as just another day off from work or from school. But how we celebrate these days in our history reflects who we are as people and how we treat other people in our society. Celebrating Indigenous Peoples Day is an important opportunity to embrace justice and inclusivity. As a Native American, I have always wondered why this day was celebrated as Christopher Columbus discovering the New World, when it was always a day of reflection on the past disparities that occurred. I had done a lot of research on Columbus's actions and the importance of Indigenous Peoples Day through using many historical texts, listening to natives' voices, and viewing many highlights about why we should re-examine our traditions. We should use October 13th to recognize Indigenous Peoples Day instead of celebrating Christopher Columbus Day, as it aligns more with our values of equity and honors the contributions and resilience of the Indigenous community. So, first, we will discuss why we shouldn't recognize Christopher Columbus Day and the problems within it. Next, I will discuss the importance of Indigenous Peoples Day. And then finally, we will discuss how we can effectively change this and the positive impacts it will leave. So, I'll first discuss the issue of celebrating Christopher Columbus Day. So one of the biggest issues celebrating Christopher Columbus is his actions included enslavement, exploitation, and violence against Indigenous people. So Christopher Columbus had implemented many rules and laws, and one of the things that he implemented was the encomienda system, which had enslaved thousands of Indigenous natives to make them work under extreme conditions without any say. Due to this, the Taino people declined up to 90% within decades because of forced labor, violence, and disease that was brought on by colonization. Columbus Day glorifies and accepts colonization. This in turn accepts the myths of October 12th and does not highlight the treatment of Indigenous natives taking place on these many days. In several websites, the National Museum of American Indian highlighted very well the treatment of Indigenous natives from the first settlers in the New World. The importance of this problem is millions of Indigenous people were affected by colonization that has forever left an impact on the culture and community. About 56 million Indigenous deaths had occurred across the Americas following European colonization. A historian named Howardson had stated in an interview, Columbus Day, Columbus killed Indians, Columbus enslaved Indians, Columbus tortured Indians, he cut off their arms. Gold motivated him. You want me to make him a hero because he was a good navigator? No, he's not a hero. The heroes are the people who resist him. And that's just one person among many that reflected on how they feel Christopher Columbus was as a whole. So, who's affected by this? Indigenous people are mainly affected by this for not being represented accurately with the misinformation of history being portrayed on this day. Society also takes a major role of this because of the injustice by continuing to celebrate this day. Now that I have addressed why Columbus Day is problematic, let's discuss why Indigenous Peoples Day is a better alternative to be celebrated. So, Indigenous Peoples Day recognizes the contributions, history, and culture of the Native people. This in turn then replaces the idea of colonization and genocide being recognized on this day with something that acknowledges their presence and provides a more respectful image. Many cities, states, and countries have adopted Indigenous Peoples Day instead, showing there's change taking place. So what we can do is we can advocate for change in schools and in our community. We can host events to show Indigenous culture and history. We can use social media to spread awareness, and we can educate individuals who still recognize Columbus Day as a celebration. This will bring so much positivity and change by fostering and understanding inclusivity through celebrating Indigenous Peoples Day. And Indigenous voices and their history would be observed accurately, which would have a greater cultural appropriation in society. Without these actions, still celebrating Columbus Day shows a lack of support towards Indigenous members. Society then does not embrace equity or reconciliation for these people. To be the change we want to see in our community, we must act ourselves. So, I have discussed with you why Columbus Day provides a harmful image and the importance of Indigenous Peoples Day and how we can make this change effective. I asked you earlier, does celebrating colonization align with our values, or should we honor resilience and culture instead? So please help in making this change by educating and celebrating the day right together. And changing what we celebrate, we can change the story we tell about this day and the values we pass on to our future generations. There won't be another Native child that questions why we celebrate October 13th as Christopher Columbus Day again. Let's make October 13th as a day of respect, reflection, and celebration of Indigenous resilience. Thank you.